Could you imagine your mother and your father never meeting? They don't know each other's names. And if they cross paths, they would know each other from a can of paint. Well, it happens all the time for donor conceived people. It's our reality. Especially if you have an anonymous donor and you don't know who they are. My name's Steph, and today I'm going to tell you my story, my donor conceived story. I was conceived in 1976 in Enola, Pennsylvania. My mother's OBGYN, his name was Dr. Alfred Sherman. My parents could not conceive because my social father was a diabetic, and they tried for many years to no avail. So my mom went for help. And I found out technically when I was 6. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a girls' day out. Me, my mom, my 2 grandmothers, we went to the mall. And I had a couple of dollars, and I was really happy to go to the mall and buy something. And there was a guy in the middle of the mall who was selling balloons. And during that time, I loved the Smurfs. This is 1983. I bought a balloon for $1. It was a big yellow balloon with Smurf on it, and I was on top of the world. And we went home that day, and I was walking down our hallway, and there was a light fixture in the hallway, and my balloon popped. And so I'm 6, and I'm completely devastated. My balloon popped. And I guess I'm throwing a temper tantrum, or whatever 6-year-olds do when they're upset. And I don't really know what provoked it. I just remember my mother screaming at me, "You were artificially inseminated." Now, I will never be able to wrap my head around why she would yell those words at me over my balloon popping. But I remember those big words being thrown at me, and I just kind of laid down on the floor and started crying because I had no idea what that meant. Time passed. We never spoke about it ever again, and I kind of suppressed it. So then, fast forward a few years, and I'm 14, and I stayed home from school for whatever reason, and I was just going through the channels, and I was watching TV, and I turned to a news program, and the show was called 12:30 Live. It was on NBC, and there were mothers with their donor conceived offspring, and they said the words artificial insemination, and the bells went off, and I was like, oh wow, that's what she said to me when I was 6. It all clicked, and then it was just like it was yesterday, and I just started to make sense of it all. Although I really didn't know what that meant. And this was 1989, 1990, about that time, and I tried to talk to some friends about it, and they didn't even know. Like, they didn't know what to say. They didn't know what to tell me what to do. And by this point, my social father had passed away from his diabetes. So one thing I am thankful for is that he never knew about the day when I was 6, and he was not there when I put all the pieces together. So I just kind of just kept it to myself for a long time. I thought about it, but I didn't have anybody to talk to and discuss how I was feeling, so I guess I just kind of suppressed it. And then I think it was like 15, and I was in therapy because my social father had passed away, and I told my therapist what happened that day when I was 6, and then how I put it together at 14, and her jaw just kind of dropped, and she called my mom on the phone, and my mom didn't deny it. She just was like, yeah, well, you know, we couldn't have kids, and so this is what I did. And the therapist didn't really know how to help me either. I, I don't remember her, giving me any direction on which way to go. I mean, it just kind of was the end of it. I told my story, and that was it. And my mom's always been one of those kind of people who doesn't like to talk about things, so it was never brought up again. She just, in her mind, just didn't. It never happened, and that was it. So I mean, I just internalized all these feelings for years. I think maybe when I was in my 20s, that may be when she told me the doctor's name. Not 100% sure when that was. When I was in my 30s, not really sure what point. I think I'm pretty sure it was in my 30s, when the DNA testing kind of was in its infancy, and I had contacted someone, and they told me that you wouldn't be able to find your donor father because you're a female, and only males can find their paternal links. So it was, I wasn't able to do anything. So I was like, well, I guess there's no point in doing that. So I guess around the year 2000 or so, when the donor sibling registry was getting started, I went on there and put my name. I didn't have a donor number, anything. My mom said that she thought maybe it was a medical student, so I put, Hershey Med, possibly a medical student, and maybe put an email or something. And that was it. And there weren't any matches, and hadn't heard from anybody until 2014. And I got an email, and this person said, hey, I found you on the donor sibling registry, and I know that my donor father had donated in Pennsylvania, and have you tested on 23andMe? And if you haven't, you should, and I don't know, maybe we'll be sisters. And so when I first saw this strange email, I almost thought it was just spam. I was thinking about deleting it, but I didn't, though. I read it and replied back, and I started talking with this person, and then they encouraged me to move forward and go ahead and test. So I ordered the kit, and I was like, oh, maybe now I'm gonna find some answers to all these questions. And wow, I've never actually communicated with anyone who was donor conceived, because even on the donor sibling registry, back when it started, I mean, it's just a registry. It's not like today, the Facebook groups where you can chat and everything. So I got the test, and I was really hopeful. And the person who had contacted me taught me all about 23andMe and how to navigate this site, and this, that, and the third. So that was pretty exciting. Well, I got my results, I guess, about 6 weeks later, something like that. Nothing. I actually found a close cousin on my mom's side that the rest of the family didn't even know existed, because he had been adopted. So that was kind of cool, learning about that side of the family, and he had done some genealogy and sent me some newspaper articles. So it was cool learning about family that I already knew existed. But there weren't any matches, not close enough matches where I could find any paternal links or get any answers. And I really didn't. I still didn't even know. It wasn't even confirmed, because my mom would always plant seeds of doubt in my mind. And she would be like, you really could be your dad's biological child. It could have been. We don't know. So this always played in my head. Just all the uncertainty. And so I got my test back from 23andMe, and me and my friend, who's now a good friend, we weren't sisters. But I was definitely grateful that she got me motivated to try. And so I actually did get on the test on 23andMe, so I was at least able to split, and so I could see my paternal ethnicity, which didn't match what my social father. His ethnicity was Croatian, Slovenian, and just I'd grown up with this my whole life, learning about his family. Basically, I had an identity that was somebody else's, but I wasn't sure. Was it my identity or wasn't it? Because I just didn't know. So I contacted my social father's niece, so that would be my first cousin. And I'm like, hey, this is my story. I was artificially inseminated and I need confirmation and we test. And she just ignored me. I just think she thought I was crazy. So I'm like, great. I mean, it's real. My social father was dead. His mother was passed away. And she was pretty much all I had. I did reach out to like a second cousin. And I'm like, okay, well, if we're related, it's going to come off that we're, these second cousins. So she said, I will take the DNA test. So I'm like, okay, great. And so I bought it and I sent it to her. And she never took it. And then just stopped responding to me. So I'm like, great. There's another, let down, another, an answer not found, I guess, So I guess another year went by, and then I reached back out to that first cousin. And I'm like, I really need you to test. Like, I need these answers. And she was like, well, I guess if it means that much to you, well, yeah, it's my identity. So yeah, it is that important, and it does mean that much to me. So I bought her a kit, sent it to her, and she's like, yeah, take it, blah, blah. So she took it, and of course I was like pretty persistent with asking her the status, and I was definitely aggressive because I wanted answers. So 6-8 weeks pass, and she's like, oh, well, it was invalid. And I'm like, so what? I'm out $100 now. Like, what? Like, are you going to take it again or what? And she's like, well, 23andMe is going to send me another kit. And I was like, okay, good. So I kind of backed off. She took the second test. And I tried not to be so aggressive. And then it was kind of weird because I had like been away for the weekend. And before I had left, she was like, I think it's really close. I think I'm going to get the results soon. And so Sunday I was like heading back to my house, and I'm like, I think it's going to be today. I think I'm going to know today. And I got home, and she messaged me and on Facebook, and she's like, I got my results. She was like, but it's saying that I have no close family. And I said, yeah, there's the answer. That is what I've been trying to tell you for a couple years now. And it was kind of shocking. It was really shocking because even though I had known it was, possible, most likely, still it was like, okay, now I have actual confirmation that my social father is not my biological father. So who do I belong to? I mean, like, growing up, I never fit in. I didn't fit in either, like with my mom's family or my dad's family. I didn't look like anyone. There's no one with blue eyes. There's no, I mean, I guess I resemble my mom a little bit, but not really. Then in 1996, I had my daughter, and she's basically a spitting image of me. And so I always would say, the only person in my family that looks like me is my daughter, my little mini me. So my cousin she was shocked. She was like, I'm really shocked. And I'm like, yeah, it's real. It's very real now. And I think what I started feeling right then was, I think I was grieving, honestly. Because now I had this confirmation. But my social father and he was my best friend. And his mother, my grandma, she was my best friend too. I mean, we were so close, and it was like absolutely devastating to know that the most important people in my life, I actually wasn't related to. So, yeah, now I know. All right, so I was donor conceived. And so I text my mom, and I'm like, it's official. I had Lauren test, and it came back that we're not related. And she's like, I'm very upset by this information. What is she going to do with this information that she knows? And whatever. And I'm like, you're so selfish. Just like stop thinking about yourself all the time. Like, this isn't about you. This is about me and my identity and trying to figure out half of my life, 50% of me that I know absolutely nothing about. I want to know my medical history. So what does she do? She starts spouting off her medical history. Okay, well, I've had 40 years to learn your medical history. I'm really, really not concerned about that. I want to know who my biological father is. And she's like, you're the daughter of me and your dad and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's all great. That's great. But genetics matter. It matters. Especially when you spend your whole life and you're surrounded by people that you're absolutely nothing like. So had ordered an ancestry kit in the meantime. And so it had come, and I kind of hesitated because with 23andMe I'd been let down. And then I also had I had uploaded my raw data to GEDmatch, Family Tree DNA, and I had done the Heritage DNA kit. And nothing. And Heritage was like, every time a cousin or something pops up, it's like fourth or fifth cousin. So, you can't even work with that. So I did Ancestry. And I don't even think it was 6 weeks. So I got my results back, and I immediately log on, and I see a second cousin popped up. And it was a name I had never heard before. So I had messaged her, and I said, I'm just trying to figure out how we're related. And in the meantime, I did text my mom, and I said, do you know this person? And she was like, oh yeah. She was like, that's my first cousin. That's grandpa's brother's daughter. And I'm like, okay, there's that. So then I had another second cousin match, and I didn't really think too much about it. I actually just kind of logged out, another, just another letdown. I don't have answers. Now I have confirmation that I'm donor conceived, but I'm just not finding anybody. Why aren't I finding siblings or something? So I logged back in again, I don't know, a few days, maybe a week or so later, and I took a look at this other second cousin, and I realized that it was pretty close as far as relationship strength to my mom's first cousin. And I'm like, why didn't I pay attention to this before? So I started digging into it, and my mom did not know the name, and I was like, I think I'm onto something. I think I'm finally onto something. So I messaged that Matt, and I was really impatient, so the Facebook stalker that I am, I went on Facebook, and I went on this other site called Pipple, where all you have to do is like put a username in and your name, and it gives you like relative matches and all this. I went on there, and I found this cousin is actually like in his 70s. So I found his daughter, went on Facebook, messaged her. Like 2 hours later, she messages me, and you never know how people are gonna like take it. It's like, hey, yeah, I'm donor conceived, and I'm looking for my sperm donor. And we actually private messaged on Facebook for probably, I think it was like 3 hours. We clicked right away. And she was like, and this was August of 2017. And she said, I know enough about the family history that we're going to figure this out. She was like, and if all of this fails, she was like, every August there's a family reunion. So we will figure this out. She was like, she was kind of surprised because she knew her mom and dad were talking about doing the ancestry DNA, but she didn't know that they actually followed through with it. So it was kind of a surprise. So she called her parents the next day, started talking to him, her dad, and I think it was like 24 hours later, she had messaged me back. And at that time, I was doing a lot of kayaking, and I had gone to bed early the night before. So when I woke up at like 3 in the morning, I got this message, and she's like, I think I figured it out. She was my dad's cousin. He worked in hospitals, and he's from Harrisburg, where you're from. She was like, I think it's his son. So I start Facebooking, and I'm like, no way, because this guy, he's younger than I am, so that's not going to work out. I'm like, so maybe it's that other cousin, it's his dad. And it was kind of very overwhelming. It's like you search for years for answers, and then all of a sudden you get those answers you've been looking for years, and it's just really overwhelming. It's like, wow, like I get to finally put the pieces to my life together. I went kayaking that day and did a lot of thinking, and I'm like, okay, so now what? Like, I may have found this guy. So now what do I do? Like, does he have Facebook? Do I message him? Do I email him? How do I get a hold of this guy? So I think within the next couple of days, I had drafted a letter because I was going to email him, and I did one of those background things, and I got an email address. So I was like, I'm going to email it. So I have, and she's my cousin. She proofread it for me, and she's like, yeah, it's really good. And so I said, okay, I'm going to send it. And so I sent it, and it wasn't too long after that I got the mailer demon said that the email wasn't valid. So I'm like, now what? I have an address, and do I mail it? Like, how do I mail this to someone? Like, I don't know. He has a family. I want him to get the letter. I want, if his family doesn't know, then I want him to be the one to tell his family, if he chose to. But so I took a chance. I sent it restricted. Well, guess what? The post office messed it up. His wife got it. She wasn't happy. But as I'm waiting for this, from the time I sent the letter, it was kind of funny because I was so nervous about sending this letter that I addressed the envelope upside down, and I'm like, okay, well, whatever. And I kind of just having a lot of anxiety. I'm like, what if it's not even him, and this guy's gonna think I'm an idiot because I just spilled my guts on this piece of paper, and he's gonna tell me he's crazy. I don't know what I'm talking about. It's not him. And then I messaged my cousin, and I was panicking, and she's like, do you feel comfortable talking to me on the phone? And I'm like, yeah, I'll call you. And we talked for 3.5 hours on the phone. We really, really clicked. It was kind of really cool to be able to talk to somebody and be so comfortable with them. I knew we were family. And she calmed me down. She was like, there's you have every reason to want to know where you come from. And so basically we talked, and she made me feel. And then it was a Friday, and I got the mail, and I got the little card back, and that's when I saw that his wife had actually signed for it. And so then I started panicking again. I called the post office, and I was like, this is really devastating to me right now. But and the lady apologized, but the damage has been done. Of course, I'm just mine's going a million miles a minute. And so it was later that night. I didn't even put on this letter. I didn't put a phone number. I'm like, oh my God, if this person, I can't answer the phone. I just can't do it. So I put my email, and I'm like, yeah, it's low threat. Just give me my email. So I'm sitting there Friday evening, and all of a sudden I see that I have this email, and it's from him. and I couldn't open it. I had so much anxiety. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't even deal with this. And I'm messaging my close friend, and she's like, you open it when you're ready. She's like, I'm here, just take a breath, and when you're ready, open that email. So I wasn't ready. I just sat there for a couple of hours, and then finally I texted my daughter and I said, hey, I need a favor. She's like, what's up, Ma? And I'm like, I need you to open this email for me because I can't do it. And I need you to tell me what it says. And she's like, yeah, sure thing. She's like, give me your username and password, and I'll read it for you. So she texts me a short time later, and she's like, yeah, he just wants to know who your mom's doctor was. And I'm like, what? He wants to know who my mom's doctor was? Like, if he doesn't know what I'm talking about, or it's completely far-fetched that this guy's my donor, he's not going to ask who my mom's doctor was. I took one big deep breath, and then I opened the email for myself, and I'm like, and it was such a relief, at that point. But then I'm like, okay, so I just have like bits and pieces of information here. Like, I guess, what am I going to say? And my friend's like, just tell him what you know. And so I did. And he wrote me back, and he was like, yeah. He was like, he was a nuclear medicine technologist in the same medical building as my mom's OBGYN, and he had approached him, and he said that he thought he would be a good match, and there was a family that wanted to have a child. They really wanted to have a child, and he said no at first, but then when he asked him again, he said yes. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, this guy wasn't like a regular sperm donor, the clinics you hear about today. It was just, basically this one time. And so I'm like, well, maybe that's why I'm not finding any siblings, because it was just based on one case. It's just one time, that was it. He said there was no motivation behind it. He was like, he paid him $20. Like, you helped create another human being for $20. Which, that's mind-blowing anyway, being paid to donate. It's the 70s. Everything was about, secrecy and deception, the whole practice, and nobody really knew. It was just in its infancy. Nobody really knew. Nobody knew how it would affect us. Nobody ever thought how it would affect us, and nobody ever thought DNA would progress to the point where, you could just find this needle in a haystack. So, we started talking, emails. I've never talked to him on the phone, actually. We talked through email, but his wife, they were married at the time. He didn't tell her, and she's not very happy about it, so we haven't met. But he said he was happy that I found him, and we do communicate, which is more than some. So I'm grateful that I at least have that. I'm grateful that I do have answers. But I really thought that once I could put the pieces together, that I would be good to go. And really, I wasn't good to go. And it's only been a little over a year, and I think it's really affecting me a lot more than I thought. I think that now that I have the answer, and I'm becoming more active in the community, I'm realizing how deep these wounds are. And about 6 months after I found my donor, I randomly got on Ancestry. I had a close family match. And I'm like, what? So there's this guy on there. And I break out the little green DNA chart. Most of you know what that is. And I'm like, this is a brother. Like, this guy's my brother. Because it was like close family to first cousin. And I'm like, there's no way, because now I know my donor. I know that he's an only child. This match was related to that same cousin where I had put everything together. And I'm like, this is my brother. So I message him, and we're kind of messaging back and forth, and I'm kind of tap dancing, and he's tap dancing. And it eventually got to a point where I'm like, I can't tell him. He doesn't know, and I can't tell him. Like, maybe it's obvious because of the relationship, but I don't want to be the one to tell him. Like, I said, you need to go talk to your parents. And he said, you obviously know something. He was like, just tell me. And I told him, I said, well, I was donor conceived, and our only possible relationship is that we're half siblings. You're my brother. I'm your sister. And he is 13 months older than me, almost to the day. He just had his birthday, and mine's coming up. I had to tell him, and that was devastating to me. I was like, because he, at that time, was 42 years old, and I'm having to tell him that life that he knew wasn't what he thought it was. And it's still new. It's like not even a year yet, and he's still processing it. And my heart definitely, it hurts. It hurts really bad because I know what he's going through. I'm definitely just glad that by the time I found him, that I had found our donor. Because while, he's having to take this all in, he doesn't have to wonder who Mr. X is, because I've found him for us. And I feel like I took that bullet for all those years, and 26 years of not knowing who I was. It really has messed with me. But I've always been very, very driven, very, very type A personality. And I've just always been a goal setter, and always just strive to meet my goals. I say I'm going to climb a mountain, and I climb it. That's just what I do. And there's never been anybody else in my family that's been like, definitely didn't have any role models in my life that were like that. So I knew that was something that was in my DNA. And I just started working on my PhD this past August. I just finished one whole semester. Woohoo! Program's about three years, and I'm majoring in community engagement, and my research focus is going to be on donor conceived people. And I want to specifically, when I get to that dissertation phase, long-term effects. What is the psychological impact? So you will probably be hearing from me. If you're in the community, I may be asking to participate in my research. I would like to, my ideas, I would like to create a nonprofit, and I want to provide a lot of resources. I want to bring people together, because the Facebook groups are, especially the ones that are, just for us, just for the donor conceived people. I don't really like the group with the parents, because I'm still really angry. I'm really angry because it's just been a long road, 42 years of, I have biological relatives that don't know I exist. I'm a 93-year-old grandmother who still drives and probably can use a computer better than I can, but she doesn't know I exist, and I will never be able to meet her. And that's sad. It breaks my heart. And I can't meet my biological father because of the whole drama. And honestly, I don't discount anybody's grief in all of this, because there's no winners. There's really no winner. I want to create to bring more of us together, because one thing that I keep hearing over and over again is I never knew anybody else that was donor conceived. Like, I thought it was just me. And, a lot of that has to do with the fact that only 10% of us know. But as time goes on, and now, people are starting to realize, I think, maybe, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, of course. People are starting to realize the effects that it's having on us, and the parents, the recipients, they need to be more. So more donor conceived children are going to know that they're donor conceived, and even if the parents do everything right, you're still going to go through the process. It still messes with you, no matter how perfect your situation is. You can't, even if you have to, open identity and you get to meet your donor at 18, or you get to write letters or whatever. I mean, it's still, just because they're open identity doesn't mean they want to necessarily have a relationship. They're just going to give you little bits and pieces. And some people are very fortunate, that they are like welcomed with open arms by their donor families. And, like I said, I am very grateful for the fact that, I at least have answers, and that he talks to me, and we do talk regularly. And maybe I just, maybe one day we'll be able to meet, and I definitely hope, because he's 70 now, and you don't know, like, time is so precious. It's just so precious, and you just don't know. So I do hope that I can meet him. And I want to thank you very much for your time and letting me you've spent some time listening to what I have to say. So thank you very much.